lot of lawyers who graduate high in their class, they get the dream job for the prestige firm, making a lot of money, and they realize, I am so unhappy. But they're afraid sometimes to step back because their family thinks it's great they work at that firm. And I think you have to figure out what your values are, what's really important to you. And maybe you make less money, but maybe you're truly fulfilled and happy and don't wish any of those days away.
And I realized that, one of my partners, his value was money. Like, he valued money and prestige. He wanted to be the top dog. He wanted to be known in the industry. Everything he was doing was guided by, I need to be known and I need to make a lot of money. Where my core values were connection. I want to be connected to people. I want to be connected to something bigger than myself. And I realized that I was growing a business that was somebody else's dream aligned with their core values and not my own. But because I had the big house and the Escalade and the this and the that and lots of money and a house manager, I was like, but can I actually live my values in this environment? The answer was no.
Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. The Free Lawyer Podcast is designed for the lawyer, entrepreneur, or professional who is in some way unfulfilled, stressed, or stuck and is looking for something better. We will discuss various blocks that limit us from achieving the personal freedom that we all desire, but have not yet fully experienced. And we will give actionable steps to free yourself from them. Are you looking to achieve a new level of success? If so, this podcast is for you.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Free Lawyer. We have a great guest today. You'll love her. Tina Brigley is joining us today, and Tina is really a world-renowned coach of people who coach, but also coach of professionals in various areas. And she's going to share a lot of her insights on personal development and how we lawyers can grow and become better at what we do and happier at the same time. Tina, how are you today?
I'm amazing. Thanks, Gary. It's great to be here with you and contribute to your audience.
Thank you so much. And I know you have a background as a special education teacher, but you've now transitioned into coaching other coaches, but also coaching other professionals. Tell me a little bit about your journey from being a special education teacher to now being a personal development coach.
Yeah, I'll do the Coles Notes version. As a special education teacher, I kind of got to the point where I felt like I was wishing my life away. You know, when you walk in on Monday morning and you wish it was Monday afternoon, and Tuesday afternoon, you wish it was Friday afternoon. And the first holiday of the year, whether it's Thanksgiving, you wished it was Christmas. And I just felt inside of me, there was this whisper, like, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be doing something else. And then it was almost as if those whispers started turning into bricks. I couldn't avoid it anymore. I had this feeling that I need to leave. And it just so happened, I feel when you get to that point, the universe starts sending you signs or messages.
Yes.
And I was on my computer and I saw a pop-up to become a health coach. And I thought, what the heck is a health coach? I know I'm recently divorced. I have a lot of time on my hands. I wanted to be a psychologist, but I moved out when I was 17 and didn't have the money to keep going through school. And I signed up for this health coaching program, and I ended up transforming my life, learning not just how to be a coach, but learning about myself helped me be a better human, a better person. And that just opened the floodgates. And
Wow.
It was less than 6 months later, I quit teaching and jumped all in coaching.
The one thing you said I could really relate to. I can think of times in my legal career where I was wishing days away. And I wanted to know, the judge said, I'll issue his decision in 2 weeks. It's like, I wish it was 2 weeks from now so I would know what the decision is. Or I got this trial coming up in August. I wish I could be there and have that behind me because it seems like such a burden to get it prepared. And what a problem in my mindset when I wish any day away, because I have a limited number of days here on this earth. I don't know what the number is, but there's some number. And for me to give any of them away is what a mistake. And it can be an indication that in some way we're unsatisfied, if not necessarily with what we're doing, at least with how we're doing it.
Oh, I love how you said that, because I felt I needed to leave education to find this other thing that I was searching for, and I found myself, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, when I was building my business, I found myself in a similar situation, just like you expressed. I was still again wishing those days away and being fearful. And that's when I realized, man, maybe it's not the doing, but who I'm being in the process.
Right.
Can I be excited about the journey and the growth? But it felt so uncomfortable that I thought, oh, I need to run away from this discomfort. But really, I needed to embrace the discomfort and
Right.
embrace the changes and embrace the growth instead of, oh, this
Right.
doesn't feel good.
Growth is, to me, all about being uncomfortable.
Mm.
I think when I was young, I wanted to be comfortable in my life and in my career as a lawyer. But I realized being comfortable is doing the same thing I've done 1,000 times. It's so easy for me. And it gets kind of boring. And I don't become better by being comfortable. And I think for me, the trouble with wishing days away is thinking too much about the future. I love being a trial lawyer. I love preparing my questions, my witness interviews, getting my opening outlined. But I'd be thinking about what the result of the trial would be, wanting it behind me because I was worried about the future. And I think for me, one of the most important things to being content in my life is being truly present in the moment and enjoying what I'm doing. You probably love being an entrepreneur, but maybe you worry about data, statistics, and results too much, and that might make you uncomfortable, but you probably love what you're doing.
Yeah, I learned to let go of the attachment to the results, because I have this kind of one of the things that I learned in my personal development and journey. I have this, I call it the no agreement. And what that means is something happens in our life and we make a decision, I'm never going to be like that. And so we go through overcompensating and almost do the opposite. So I made this decision, I'm never going to be a loser, like that person. And so I went through my life winning at everything. But the problem with that is if I knew that there was a chance that I wouldn't win, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put myself out there. So I had this level of success, but I wouldn't go to the next level because I was like, oh, I might lose, and I'm not a loser. And so I realized, okay, how do I overcome this? Let go of the winning and losing mentality. There is no winning and there is no losing. Maybe in trial lawyer, yeah, you do win a case, you lose a case, but is it really a loss? Because maybe there's gains in other ways. Like I learned in the failures what I can do better for next time. So when I go into anything, letting go of the attachment to the results, I feel a sense of ease knowing that win or lose, it's okay. Because I'm always going to win because I'm going to learn something. I'm going to learn a lesson. I'm going to, it's in the failures that we actually grow.
Absolutely.
So I shifted the loss.
There's a lot of winning and losing in one sense in the legal profession, whether it's winning a case, getting a client, a lot of things we could judge as wins or losses. But the reality is the success comes in the effort we put forth, not necessarily in the results. Sometimes I could put forth great effort and not win. The other lawyer's trying too, and maybe his evidence was a little bit better, his case a little bit stronger. What matters is how hard I worked and what I can learn from each of those experiences, whether it's a setback or a complete victory.
Mm-hmm. I have this saying, I love setbacks, because sometimes setbacks are setups for something else. And so in the situation with trial law, for example, yeah, I didn't win this case. I lost this case, but then what do you do moving forward? It's like, okay, so what was missing? And that's what I do. I look for what was missing that had me not win that case. Oh, this wasn't prepared. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just when you look for what's missing that could help you win your game, Now that's a gift we can never get rid of, right? So, and that's how I operate. Okay, this was where I was at. This is what I wanted to do. I fell a little short. Okay, what was missing that I can put in the next time? And so I find that I just go through life trying to close that gap between where I am and where I want to be. And those setbacks sometimes are set ups for those bigger cases or the bigger things in life.
What are the critical, you've had amazing success as you transition from being a special ed teacher to a coach and helping so many professionals in their fields be successful. What are the critical mindset shifts or strategies you used to achieve that success?
So I think the first thing that I really had to wrap my mind around was this concept of breakthroughs and blind spots. I didn't realize that a breakthrough is when you see something that was outside of your awareness and you take new actions. And I started having breakthroughs in my life that really made a difference. It was these mind-opening realizations coming from uncovering something that was in my blind spot. So for example, when I started growing my coaching business, I remember one time I went to a Starbucks in Washington, D.C., okay? And the barista was so amazing. And I remember saying, I want to leave you a review. I'm going to find you on Facebook and I'm going to talk you up because you're just the most extraordinary person. And I tried to find her and I couldn't. And I said, you know what? Here, look me up, friend me. And I said, Tina Marie Brigley. She started shaking. She's like, oh my God, I follow you. I follow you on social media. She's like, you're my angel. I didn't realize though, but being seen, that actually put something, it was a blind spot for me because I started putting on my brakes after that. I started hiding online. And I realized when I was bullied in 7th grade, what I did was to avoid the bullies, I hid in the bathroom at recess so I didn't have to go outside for recess. I hid in the classroom after school just for 10 minutes so that they would be gone home and I could walk home in peace. So I realized that I had been going through my life hiding, and this was a blind spot. So when I realized that we have these blind spots, and we can actually see them and realize, oh, I just created this belief and I can let go of the belief and have a breakthrough. I started being a breakthrough detective. Like I started going out looking for breakthroughs. And I realized that the secret to success sometimes is uncovering the things that we can't see.
That requires a lot of self-awareness, doesn't it?
Self-awareness. It's like, self-awareness is the lock and action is the key. And when you put them together, self-awareness and action, I mean, what happens? You have the keys to the kingdom. It's a superpower. And, it's just something that nobody can ever take away from you.
Lawyers work in a really demanding profession, and sometimes they feel like they're not in the right place. How can lawyers get to the place where they realize they're living their own dream and not that of someone else?
Well, I think asking yourself the tough questions, is this my dream or somebody else's dream? Is this something that my family wanted for me and I'm following in my mom's footsteps or my dad's footsteps? Or is this something that I truly want? Because I think what happens is we go to school, we learn, we get all this education, we get into these careers, and we think, well, this is it. In education, I went to school, I got my honors in psychology, I got my bachelor's in education. This is the way that it is. This is the way it's got to be. I'm going to retire here and then I'm going to live the life that I want. But really, maybe that's just a program belief that we have. Mm-hmm. And maybe, again, like those whispers, I don't even love this. It doesn't give me joy. And you are the prime example of that. You're coaching, you're making a difference. It's like, yeah, I really like that, but there was something else inside of me. I think having the courage to look within and ask those tough questions, is this really what I want? And if the answer is no, having the courage to say, okay, what is it that I truly want?
Yeah, there are a lot of lawyers who graduate high in their class, they get the dream job for the prestige firm, making a lot of money, and they realize, I am so unhappy. But they're afraid sometimes to step back because their family thinks it's great. They work at that firm. And And I think you have to figure out what your values are, what's really important to you. And maybe you make less money, but maybe you're truly fulfilled and happy and don't wish any of those days away.
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing this business, I had 3 business partners, and we achieved a level of success that not many people in the coaching industry really achieve. We were at the top 4%. So we hit multi-seven figures. We were in Forbes, USA Today. We won 4 global Globee Disruptor business awards. We had 1,500 clients. And I realized that, one of my partners, his value was money. Like, he valued money and prestige. He wanted to be the top dog. He wanted to be known in the industry. Everything he was doing was guided by, I need to be known and I need to make a lot of money. Where my core values were connection. I want to be connected to people. I want to be connected to something bigger than myself. And I realized that I was growing a business that was somebody else's dream aligned with their core values and not my own. But because I had the big house and the Escalade and the this and the that and lots of money and a house manager, I was like, but can I actually live my values in this environment? The answer was no. And so I ended up walking away from that. And people thought, how can you do that? How can you leave when you're at the height of your success? Because I know that I can create. I have the intelligence. I have the education. I can create whatever I want, but I got to know, what is it that I want? And so I said to myself, what is it that you want? I said, I want to work with a handful of clients. I want to know their families. I want to know what's keeping them up at night. I want to build a community. And so that's what I did. But it took a lot of courage to, first of all, look within and say, what do I want? And then go after what you want. It takes a lot of courage.
I think that's such an instructive story, because I think a lot of lawyers are living someone else's dream. Like you were living your partner's dream. And maybe someone else thinks it's very cool, their spouse, their parents, their best friends, that they're in this big firm and they get a lot of accolades for that. They realize it's not what they want. So whoever's listening, listen to Tina and take some time to figure out what's important to you if you're not happy, because it can really make a difference. Tina, you talked about breakthrough, and there might be some lawyers listening to you today who are struggling and who are unhappy. How can they identify and break through whatever limits them to become a more successful and happier lawyer?
You can't coach yourself. And a lot of people will just plug away. They'll feel something is not right. Something's out of alignment. I'm not happy in my relationship. I'm not happy in my job. I feel like those triggers are messengers that something gets to be transformed. But because we're successful, a lot of lawyers, I am pretty sure, are alpha, are dominant. No, I don't need help. I don't need somebody else's help. Like, I already am educated. And I say, it's not what you know, it's what you don't know. And you don't know it. That's, those are the blind spots. So if something's not working in your life, I don't care how educated you are, how rich you are, how successful you are. We're human beings living a human experience, and we all have blind spots. And you might not know what that is, but if you're open to coaching, and you get somebody who has a level of personal awareness that can help you find these things, your life will never be the same once you have these breakthroughs. And I know, even for me, I'm a coach who trains coaches and entrepreneurs. I have a coach because I can't coach myself. And some people think, but you coach coaches, don't you know it all? No, I'm a human being. I don't know it all. But I hire coaches that have more training and development than I have, who have more experience than I have, so that they can help me see the things. Because I also believe you can only take people as far as you're willing to take yourself. And so if somebody who's listening right now is open to being coached by somebody like you, for example, because you're in their world, you know what they're experiencing, you've done your own personal work, Sometimes it's one question that has you see something totally newly. You don't have to spend years getting coaching. You just have to have one little nugget and take a new action, see something that you haven't been able to see.
That's so important. I think a lot of folks, the idea of coaching is really kind of a little bit new in the professional world. When I was becoming a lawyer and was a lawyer, there was no such thing. And I have a coach now like you do, even though I coach lawyers. And I analogize to golf. I've been playing golf since 8th grade. And I've had a coach, and now I've been playing 55 years. I've had a coach, a pro golfer coaching me about golf every year for 55 years. You think by now I'd know how to play the game, but I still don't know what I'm doing right, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And even the best players on tour, they go to the tour with their coaches who aren't really as good golfers, but they can see things in them, see those blind spots, and help them to break through.
And I believe we're worthy of having that experience. Some people think, oh, well, I don't have the money for that, or I don't have the time. That's all BS. And I mean, belief system, belief system, because we all have the same amount of time. And we prioritize what's important to us. I know so many people that have the Louis Vuittons and the fancy shoes and the purses and the trips. They'll spend thousands of dollars on a vacation and they'll say, oh, I don't have money for personal growth.
Right.
Like, that's not true. You're just not prioritizing making yourself as important as the vacation. You're running from your life instead of dealing with your life.
I like what you said, Tina. I think that so many people, particularly the part about deserving it, I think lawyers work so hard to answer their clients' problems, to help them, to find solutions for them, and they don't ever find time for themselves. And they often will use lack of time and lack of money as an excuse. To think that you can't find 2 or 3 hours a month for yourself to help you to grow, to become happy, to become fulfilled, isn't real. You deserve it. You have the time. You can afford it. And you want to make yourself your most important client first, because only when your cup is overflowing do you have energy and passions to give to others.
I have a theory about time. And I have this theory because I was very go, driven, busy. And I realized one of the things that I discovered about myself is the reason why I was so busy and filling all my time is because it was a reflection of intimacy. And intimacy for me is into me, I see. I didn't want to see the things that I was running from. Being busy was a way to avoid listening here, being in here. And so one of the things that I did was I really worked, and it might sound woo-woo, but on self-love. And self-love for me was just being able to slow down enough to give to me.
I think that's important. A lot of lawyers deal with what some people call imposter syndrome or self-doubt. And they don't think nearly as good of themselves as their clients do, as their partners do. And lawyers can be extremely hard on themselves. And I work hard with my clients. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some forgiveness. You make thousands of decisions in a day. Some may not be the right strategy. That's okay. But don't beat yourself up about that. And we can be very, very hard on ourselves. You talked about the importance of fostering relationships. So for a lawyer who's trying to grow and be more successful, tell me about fostering relationships. Why is that important? And how can a lawyer do that better?
I believe that communication is the foundation of living, yet we aren't actually trained on how to be in communication with each other. And we talk about listening, but sometimes I always say there's 2 conversations going on at all times. There's the one in our head and there's the one out here with people. So when you are communicating in a way not to respond or try and fix, but just really listen, that builds connection with people when you can actually get over there in their experience without having to fix anything. And so I really like to say that there's a way to do that has people be heard and gotten. I use that word gotten, like really, wow, I feel like you get me. Yeah,
Right.
because I'm actually listening to you instead of listening to the voice in my head.
That's particularly hard for us because we're trained to be problem solvers. You bring us a problem, we tell you how to fix it. And I strive to be very empathetic and an active listener, but even I have to really focus on it because my wife is a director of nursing, and she'll come home and she'll tell me about all the things that might have gone wrong or all the problems in her day. And I immediately say, well, next time you could do it this way, or you could install this process, instead of just listening to her. And it takes some focus for we lawyers because it's kind of contrary to what our profession is about, which is solving your problem you bring to us. But when we come from a place of really listening, it deepens that relationship.
Well, let me give everybody who's listening one little strategy. So I know that underneath every complaint is a wish. Now, if you can listen from, I wonder what they wish for. So it's like, oh, this happened and they're expressing themselves. It's like, okay, I wonder what they wish was different. Or I wonder, so when we can come from a place of curiosity, wow, what was that like for you today? Oh, well, it was, this, well, what did you need? Or what do you want? Or what did you hope could have happened? Oh, well, you might even hear the words coming to their house. Well, I wish people would just listen. I wish people would just not react. It's like, wow, I can imagine that must be challenging.
Yeah, that way of speaking is a skill that we all have to develop. And I think it's so important to really deepen those relationships with our clients, because that's what fuels our business. I know that personal development is really what you're about. You help coach people in how to grow personally. Lawyers are so busy, and we talk about, sometimes they say they don't have the time for coaching. What are the advantages to a busy lawyer of personal development, and how do they ever make it a priority given all the pressures they're under?
Yeah, so we don't believe that we have control over our time. We get stuck in habits and patterns that actually we give our power away to time. Now imagine if we said every day from 12 till 1, I'm going to take an hour for lunch. Most busy people will be like, are you crazy? There is not enough time. If I take that time, then I'm going to be up late and all of this stuff. But it's actually honoring a boundary. And it doesn't matter. You could spend 24 hours every day and still not have enough time.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a mindset shift we get to adopt. And maybe it's not an hour. Maybe we start off with 20 minutes of scheduled time for you. And in the beginning, that's really challenging for people. But then if we can do 20 minutes, then we can add 5 minutes. So, I mean, I wouldn't say if you don't ever eat lunch and you don't ever take time for yourself, an hour might be a big stretch. But start with what you can commit to creating. Maybe it's you take your calendar, you schedule out 15 minutes where your secretary, everybody knows, don't talk to me during these 15 minutes. And it might just be that, a 15-minute increment. And then you just add on. It's like that 1 degree or that 1% shift, but it's, I say intention plus action equals results. Intention is our way of being. So if I'm being calm, and I know when I talk about being, people are like, what the hell are you talking about? So people in the business world, being, what do you mean? Yeah, it doesn't matter what's going on right now. If you commit, like, I'm going to be calm. There's a crap storm around me, but I'm going to be calm. And then what I'm going to do, I can't control that right now, but I'm going to take 15 minutes to just have a coffee, to sit here, tune out the noise, and then I can be in action. You can actually get more time by focusing on who you're being. I say to myself, I'm a loving, courageous, powerful leader. I spoke in front of 550 people on the weekend. Now, I was nervous. I couldn't eat lunch, all the stories, like what if this and what if that? And I had to remind myself, okay, if I were willing to be courageous right now, what would I do? I would get on that stage and I would be me. I would just say what's in my heart. but I had to generate myself to be courageous because I wasn't feeling courageous. You can feel scattered, but it's like you can be present. So I say, focus on that. And
I think that's a great point. I think a lot of lawyers have that kind of pressure too. Not that some speak before conferences, but for example, speaking to a judge or an appellate group or giving a closing argument for a jury can be pretty intimidating. And we can get wrapped up in what are they thinking about me? How do I look? How do I sound? Instead of just being present and doing what we're best at. And I really like what you said about time. I think one of the troubles we have is our attitude towards time. We can look at it as, I don't know, how often do people say, I don't have enough time? I would like to do it, but I can't. I don't have enough time. We all have 24 hours a day. The key is how we choose to use it. And if we look at our 24 hours as being a gift, as being something we can spend and use in whatever way we choose, instead of we only have 24 hours, we don't have enough time, we really become much more productive. And those breaks that you talked about can be really, I encourage all my lawyer clients to schedule a break in their day. And they're this, I'm too busy. So you'll find you get so much more done if you take that break. A football game, they take a timeout so the defense can rest and get their energy back for the next play. But sometimes we professionals, we don't take that break. We don't take that timeout that even professional athletes need.
Well, we have these, like, I call them saboteurs, right? So one of the saboteurs is hyperachiever, controller, analyzer, people pleaser, the pleaser, the victim. And when we're aware of these saboteurs, so I think in law, we have a hyperachiever, a high achiever. You got to go through school, you got to be educated, and then you got to be in control at all times. That works for us. But sometimes when it becomes part of our identity and who we're being, then it's not just a job or a doing, it becomes ingrained in us. And this is where we have to notice when high achieving or hyper achieving is actually hijacking our joy and freedom and peace. At the end of the day, we only have one life. And how many times do you hear work, 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 run, 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 then you retire, and what? Soon as you stop, you die. It's like, really? Is that what we want?
That was my biggest fear, that I would work and work and work and work and work until I died. And life is too short. It's about enjoying the journey. And what I like about what you said is I talk about the concept of busyness. Busyness is bad business. So often you go somewhere and you say, how are you? Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And if someone said, I'm doing okay, I'm not that busy, you think, what's wrong with him or her? Busyness isn't healthy. Busyness isn't good. It's being really present and enjoying what we do. One of the things you talk about a lot is creating internal freedom. And, for the busy lawyer, what does that mean? And how can they use it to have a life of happiness and fulfillment?
Yeah, I think, I believe that the game of life is an internal game. And, maybe success isn't the money in the bank or the clients on the roster or any of that stuff. Maybe success in life is having a regulated system. Maybe it's honoring yourself and what you want. Maybe success is having freedom to slow down despite what's going on around you. And so even if it's, when I find myself running, and I feel like I'm running in circles, one of the things that I'll do, and it's only 10, 20 seconds, I'll stop and I'll listen for something that's far away. I'll listen to a noise. Like I'll try and hear like maybe the car passing by. It's a pattern interrupt. We got to interrupt the pattern and it becomes a practice. And also trusting that everything is happening the way that it's supposed to. This has been the biggest lesson for me. When money's not coming in, or there's a lull in business, or there's a failure, I say, okay, how did I, and I use the word source, how did I source this into my life? What am I supposed to learn about myself? Who am I supposed to be right now? And it's a woo-woo kind of term, but I believe in fourth level responsibility, which is everything that's happening in my reality. It's not happening to me or for me, it's happening through me. So I'm supposed to learn something. So no matter what's going on, I remember there was one year my brother died, my dad died, my nephew died, I got a divorce, I moved houses, I got asked to step down from my business. Everything happened. And people are like, how did you overcome that? I overcame it because I had this belief that I am the source and creator of my reality. And if it's coming into my reality, it's happening to teach me something and to help me be a more resilient human being. I need to be hit with all of these storms more so than the average person so that I can build that muscle quicker. And that's what it is. Personal development is building a resiliency muscle. So when you invest in yourself, when you get coaching, what you're doing is you're actually giving yourself the tools to be, the eye of the storm, to be the calm in the storm, because life will never stop happening. Death will never stop happening. Traumas will never stop happening. But who we get to be is a practice.
Yeah, I have one client who judges his day and kind of rates his day on a scale as to what's good and what's bad and how the day was. And he has traditionally rated it by what happened to him. Did good things happen or bad things happen? I said, well, more important than that is, why don't you rate it according to how you handled what happened? If a client flies off the handle, it's not your fault. That doesn't make it a bad day, but how did you respond to the client? Did you respond with calmness and listen to him actively, or did you yell and scream back? That's what we want to judge ourselves by, and what can we learn from those things that happen? A lot of it to me comes down to the concept of acceptance. So many times we resist things in our life we don't like. And I think what you said is true. Everything happens for a reason. People are in our world for a reason. Circumstances happen for a reason. And my job is to accept them, evaluate them, and then make the right decision, but not to be a victim of the partner who's kind of cranky or the client who's too demanding. They are who they are. That's how they are. But how do we handle that? How do we respond to it? To me, that's what matters.
Oh yeah. It's understanding like, what is the source of upsets? Why do people get upset? They have an expectation that's not met. They have an intention that's thwarted, or they withhold their communication. That's why people get upset. When you know that, when you have those tools, it's like, oh, Johnny is upset because of this. Okay. We don't have to take on his upset. He's upset because he's upset. But we also do this thing where something happens and we turn a moment of upset into hours, into days, into weeks, into years. But if we can practice what you said at the beginning of this conversation was being present, what happened is what happened. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just what's so. Johnny came into my office and he was really upset. I don't need to hang on to that for the rest of the day, but we do that, which contributes to the busyness because we have no space to create and innovate because we're still dealing with Johnny's upset that happened an hour ago or a week ago. It's like, so when we practice being present, this is what's happening. And that's what I'm talking about, being the eye of the storm. People are going to come when you're in a profession like law. Everything's an upset. Divorces are happening and criminals and trials. And, your whole life revolves around dealing with people that are upset, that are getting sometimes the shit end of the stick, but it's who do you get to be when all of those things are happening around you? And you're also dealing with your own life at the same time. And this is the value of personal growth. When you have tools, when you see something and you have a tool to deal with it, it's not like learning where you go to school and you read a book and you take an exam, that information stays or it doesn't. But when you discover something about yourself, you can't unsee it. It's like, oh, here's that tool. The more tools you have in your toolkit to regulate your nervous system, to not take on other people's stuff, it's a superpower that helps you amplify your business.
The last 15 years of my career, I did family law and almost exclusively. And so many people say to me, I could never do that. How did you ever do it? How did you just not get so burned out, hearing about their anger, their hurt, their victimization? And I said, I was just there to be of service. It wasn't my feeling. It was their feeling. And I was there to help them through it, but it wasn't mine. I liked what you said before about breakthroughs and coaching. And I will share with you something that I've seen and see if you've seen the same, which is I have so many clients who are judging their future off their past. And I can see in them a future of success. I can see how they can take their talents and mold them and grow them to have a much better future, a much more successful future, a much freer future than they see in themselves. Have you seen that with clients that you coach?
I mean, yeah, because we think that the past is in the past, but it's always the future we're living into, you know? So it's the scenario of what happens when you get that plane ticket and you're like, I'm going to Mexico in a week. You're excited. You start maybe like, oh, I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to start packing. That Mexico trip isn't even happening yet. But then what happens is here you are in Mexico sipping a pina colada, and you're like miserable. Why? Because you're like, oh man, today's the last day. I'm going back home tomorrow. Here you are in paradise with a pina colada in your hand, and you're miserable because you're living into this future of going back home tomorrow. And this is what we do. We're either living in the past or living in the future. So I say, what if there is no past and there is no future? There's only right now. And if you can live in the now, you get to just choose. You don't have to worry about, okay, I tried this and it didn't work. Okay, great. You tried that and it didn't work. But that's not to say it's not going to work in the future. You're a different person now than you were back then. I see it all the time. And I think what we do as coaches is we help people live in the now and leave the past where it belongs, in the past.
And not worry so much about the future too. I think the past is often filled with resentment about how someone might have treated us, or regret. Even if you talked about that client from an hour ago who yelled at us and shouldn't have. If that's still in our mind, that's our fault. That's over. That happened. Now I'm working on a different matter. And the future is usually filled with thoughts of failure and loss and worry and things going wrong. We don't usually look in the future and think, oh, everything, I'm going to win. We're often thinking, oh, what if this goes wrong? You know?
Well, because we don't, and I call this sourcing completion energy. Johnny walked into my office and he yelled at me. Okay, Johnny walked into my office and he yelled at me. It's done, complete. What happens is when we don't actually in our mind say, okay, that's what happened, and we let it go, what happens is it becomes an open loop. It's not complete. You're still like, oh, Johnny this, Johnny. And so then when something else happens, then there's another incompletion and we hang on to that. Open loops chains feel like weights, and we're like, oh my God, so much work, it's so much stress. It's not because of what's happening, it's because of all the things that we never just, I got into a fight with my, husband or wife in the morning, and then Johnny did this, and chain. You're like, oh my God, it was the worst day ever. But it's like, okay, what do you need to say? Avoiding conflict manufactures fake peace. What do you need to say to your wife to say, hey, listen, we got off on the wrong foot. I'm sorry, I was a little harsh with you. Can we do a redo? Yeah, I would love that. Great. That loop is closed. Now it's gone. The argument in the morning with your wife isn't there. When Johnny walks into the room, hey, Johnny, I get it. You're really upset. And what can I do for you? How can I help you? And, okay, great. Now that's complete. When we go through life getting things complete, they can't ever chain. And this is a part of being present and not avoiding the conflict or the hard conversations, taking it all on. I have this belief, step over nothing. And what I mean by that is something happens, deal with it, get it out of the space, especially people that are up to big things. You don't have time for all of these chains because you have multiple clients, multiple things you're dealing with. Those little things, you cannot hang on to that crap because you have too many other things going on. You got to get it out of the way.
Tina, for the lawyer who's listening to you today, who's feeling stuck and overwhelmed and stressed and verging on burnout, before they call me or call you, what suggestions do you have to that person to find some peace and to get into a better place from a mindset perspective?
I mean, the first thing is really taking that time for you to really get real with yourself. We're not honest with ourselves with where we're at. emotionally. We are living in a society where instead of dealing with our emotions, we're stuffing them. We're being busy, we're overworking, we're watching TV, we're coming home and drinking. I say Chardonnay is not your friend or a good coach, and neither is Jack or Bud, okay? So if you're resorting to having them as your friends, they're not really your friends. So get real with yourself about where you're at. And the second thing is be open to receiving help. Help is not a sign of weakness. Help is a sign of strength. We are human beings living a human experience. And when you are a big person up to big things, you can't actually do it on your own, even though you've been trying your whole life to take it all on and be it all and do it all for everybody. That's what contributes to burnout. There are easier ways to calm your nervous system, and talking it through with somebody who's qualified to help you release it is the best thing that you can do.
Well said. Well said.
Take time for self-care.
Yep. Tina, I call this podcast The Free Lawyer, and because it's all about how we as very busy professionals can find personal freedom in our lives. And you're a very busy person too. You just spoke before a huge conference. What do you think for you the concept of personal freedom means?
Personal freedom is doing what you love to do, doing it with freedom and ease, despite whether it works or it doesn't. Freedom is allowing yourself, I believe that life is a game, playing full out. And playing full out is not just being successful at business. It's how do I be successful at life? How do I be successful at having amazing relationships and really great health and success in business? How do I have all of my life work for me? And if it's just one-sided, you're really successful in business, but you're not taking time for you, or you can't take 15 minutes in the day, that is not freedom. Freedom is living a life that you enjoy. And if you can do what you love and enjoy life in the process, that's true freedom.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Tina, boy, thank you so much for your incredible insights today. For the listeners who'd like to learn more about you, maybe get in touch with you, how can they best find you?
I mean, if you Google me, Tina Brigley, or go to LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, Tina Brigley. That's probably the best way. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to contact me. Or if you want to drop me an email, tinabrigleycoaching@gmail.com. That's the best one.
Tina, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate who you are and how you help so many people.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Gary. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you all for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, please be well, be safe, and be free.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Free Lawyer Podcast. Wherever you are listening, if you enjoyed what I shared, please leave me a rating and review. I would appreciate hearing more about what you like best and what topics you might like me to cover in future episodes. If you are interested in experiencing a more fulfilling and a more successful life, please contact me at www.garymiles.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me so I can learn more about you, your challenges, and your dreams. I appreciate each and every one of you, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all of you for your support.